What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Why We Love PlayStation VR. Sitting across from me this week and every week is a lullaby would waken a drunken goblin. It's Desra.
I didn't get that one.
It's a Hobbit quote.
Oh,
from the book.
Oh,
I figured it's only appropriate for the show we're doing today.
because it's based on a book?
No.
And sitting across from me is Brian Paul.
Hey, what's going on?
Yeah.
Because Marvels are like hobbits.
They are, I guess. They're little.
And every week on Why We Love PlayStation VR, we sit around and we discuss a classic PlayStation VR game. Something from long ago. We re-examine it to see if it's been updated or patched to meet today's standards, or if you you've never played it, we want to see if it's worth playing for the first time. I kind of gave up the ghost already, but what game did we choose this week, Desra?
Well, apparently it is actually my last episode of Without Parole because
it's been a pleasure having you here.
Yeah, it was great up till about now.
Yeah.
But we're going to be covering the often requested and finally delivered Mervels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mervels, a VR adventure.
And check your calendar. It's not April 1st. This is really happening.
This is really happening. Although it would have been a perfect April Fool's Day episode.
But we really don't want to wait that long. There's been a lot of requests for it lately. So, you know what? Since you are our bosses...
it's kind of true. Mervels, a VR adventure is the full title.
Yes.
And it was released back in February 21st of 2017.
Yes.
It's a long time ago.
It is.
Yeah.
It's positively ancient. So I guess it is absolutely a classic of PSVR.
Classic of VR proportions.
Yeah.
Came out for $19.99. To this day, it remains that price. By Vitruvius Technologies Incorporated.
Yes.
That's a mouthful.
It is.
Yeah. I wish they'd name it something else.
Vitruvius.
Also, I wish they'd name Mervels something else. Mervels. It doesn't roll off the tongue, and you sound like a nerd when you say it.
Well,
Mervels.
Yeah, Mervels has been around as a name for this thing for quite a while. So yeah, it's a third-person platformer,
Indeed.
I guess, with RPG elements.
Uh-huh.
Although they tend to call it an action RPG, which I have some issues with. But
I have more issues with the RPG side of things than
that's
the action.
Yeah, the action part is fine. The RPG is questionable.
It's a 3D mascot platformer, basically.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess the idea is you can kind of rank up your character by gathering coins and buying better weapons, but that does not an RPG make.
This is very true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, every game that comes out these days wants to have RPG elements to it.
Yes.
Right. It's not good enough for it just to be an action platformer. It also has to be an RPG.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which all right. We'll talk more about that later. But Vitruvius Technologies Incorporated. Okay, let me just read their description of this.
Yes.
Because this is one of my favorite things to do. With merely a sword and a few coins, your quest begins in the Mervil countryside. The pages of the Great Mervil Book have been scattered throughout the land, and the dark sorcerer, Balazar the Evil, has risen from the shadows. How do you think he got the name Balazar the Evil? Do you think it was self-proclaimed the evil? Or did somebody else that was like, this guy's not very nice, name him the evil?
I'm just actually going all the way back to the nursery. It's like, Hunter, are you sure you want to go with Balazar the Evil? It's like, no, it's ironic. It'll be great.
Yeah. Has risen from the shadows. It is up to one brave hero to collect the lost pages, rebind the great book, and defeat Balazar once and for all. Will that Mervil be you?
Probably not.
Probably not. So Mervils, as we discussed in the intro to this, are hobbit-like creatures.
Yes, and one thing, there was another reviewer I read that I think they captured this perfectly. You know, many of these games, there's, of course, and it's just a classic of literature, there is the chosen one, who's supposed to be the hero to come out from humble beginnings to go save the world. In this world, Mervils are hobbits. They want to stay home. They want the creature comforts. They want things nice and simple. These guys are a step or two below hobbits because they can't do crap on their own. And what this reviewer said, I think is perfect, is like, I think the only reason that you are the chosen one is because you're able to actually do things.
Yeah.
There's just like, oh, I would like to make an axe, but I can't find a stick. He's right next to a tree.
Yeah, so yeah, there are a lot of useless, we'll call them side quests, I suppose.
Yeah.
But they are literally go find a stick.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily find that to be a bad thing.
Nope.
I mean, if you really break down the plot of any Mario game, which this game really tries to compare itself to, Yeah, there's not really like, oh, I have to go do, get this turtle, his shell, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to give you any knocks on that. That's fine.
But in typical third-person platformer trope territory, this thing definitely covers all of the typical tropes.
Yes.
Right. You start off and it's this green field. Right, the first world is all like Green Hill Zone, basically, right? Which is, I mean, the first level in any third-person platformer is always like this lush green environment with fields and rivers and everything is like bright and cheery, and there's flowers growing and mushrooms.
Or a deep dark forest.
Is that first level
Moss.
territory?
Moss.
Oh yeah. This is true, but even that, it's still pretty.
Pretty idyllic.
Pretty idyllic indeed. And then, but then very quickly you realize, oh, okay, next is a desert. Mm-hmm. There's even a minecart level. Spoilers.
Yeah.
Then the next one is a winter wonderland.
Yep.
The last one is all sand pirate theme, I think, right?
Yep.
And,
no, the fire boss was in the ice level, which totally makes sense.
Why wouldn't there be?
Okay, right.
Right. So they even incorporated a fire level into this thing. So
there was the Wild West one. No, did we say that? Oh, that was the desert one.
The desert one is the Wild West. Yep.
Yeah,
absolutely. So it doesn't. I'm not gonna like bash this thing too hard for not being original, but it's not original.
No, there's not. There's nothing here you haven't seen in many other games. In
non-VR.
Right.
I'm going to keep going back to this, okay?
Yeah.
Because in VR, as we've discussed ad nauseum over the last year and a half, VR makes everything better.
Yes.
And VR can take a game that's not terribly scary, but put you inside of it and make you go, I think I should be scared.
Yeah.
Right? And then they can put you inside of like a relatively average 3D platformer. Mm-hmm. And in my humble opinion, make it better.
Yes, this definitely is better than it would have been as a flat game.
Good.
Yes, I will agree with that.
I was worried we were going to start like throwing punches like this early on in the episode.
No. I cannot fault you on that. This does make it better than it would have been if it wasn't in VR.
But let's talk about this for a second. Because in VR, Mervils is two very different games. And I think you and I played it two very different ways.
Okay.
Because of the camera controls.
Sure. Because
motion sickness definitely rears its ugly head if you are sensitive to VR motion sickness.
Yeah, if you do like the camera, basically you can snap the camera to your character so it follows it along automatically.
Very third-person platformer-like.
Yeah, and you have you control your viewpoint in the camera and whatnot, or you can just sort of they call it blink mode, where basically you tap the shoulder button and it kind of just jumps the camera to where the character is.
And if you don't tap the button, then what happens is you're running around. The camera's just static. Picture like an old Resident Evil game. Right?
Yeah.
And then the second your character walks like out of sight, like way out of frame, then it switches to another camera angle.
Right.
But yeah, you can constantly like tap the analog stick or the is it R1? Is that what it is, or R2? Something.
Yeah, R1 I think.
And to move your camera yourself.
Or no, L1.
But it is extremely strange to play this way in my book because it's a third-person platformer. If the camera's not following your character, it's very awkward, especially when there's enemies around that will pop up and you need a good perspective to be able to fight them, especially when you're swinging a sword that isn't terribly long. But
I will say that the snap or the blink, it covers that pretty well because it is very instant and pretty seamless. I've done a lot of the gaming, like especially Skyrim, where I'm doing teleporting all the time anyway, so it's not that hard of a shift. The only issue I had, and this was something that I complained about, and Brian said, "Oh, try it with the regular cameras," and I still had an issue. Was just also my viewpoint ending up in a tree. And usually, of course, as these things go, in the middle of like a big jump or something like that, jumping, and all of a sudden, boom! Now I'm in a tree and I can't see anything. Great. Even my wife noticed as I was playing. She's like, "What's going on? Why can't I see anything?" It's like, yeah. That was. I mean, she was watching through the social screen, obviously, but yeah.
So interestingly enough, you see my footage that I played. So I played this yesterday. Just to kind of like, remember what this game is like, kind of refresh my memory. And also throughout the course of the week, you'd mentioned a couple of things like the camera issues. And I was like, well, I'm gonna jump back in and see if I've got any issues. Strangely, and I don't know what it is, I'm constantly moving the right analog stick back and forth to like change the camera perspective.
Yeah.
I was fine.
Okay.
Never ended up in a tree. Nothing. I don't know. But on the continuing voyage that is Desra's journey through motion sickness, this caused you some issues.
Yeah, I did try, the smooth turning, or I forget what it's called, just the default camera settings.
Yep.
And I lasted about half hour or so, which is longer than the first time I played it.
Yeah,
the first
I'm
time I
actually
played it, I
surprised.
tapped out within the first 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of it is that I'm getting better at this, or I was just like, no, I need to tough it out and try this, because one thing I try to make very clear is, like, if we like a game, or if I like a game, I can pretty much play 20 minutes, half hour, like, yeah, I like this game, which I'm. But if I don't like a game, I want to make sure I'm giving it every possible chance. So
Yeah.
kind of gritted my teeth and stuck through that camera thing.
I spent 8 hours with Arc Park one night. Oof. Never getting that night back.
Yeah, so I would say if you've got some VR motion sickness issues, you definitely want to be careful with this one. Use the blink mode. But if you don't, then yeah.
This game reminded me visually of a PlayStation 1.5 game.
Yeah,
Like Ape Escape 1. It looks like Ape Escape 1, except if the levels in Ape Escape 1 were way bigger.
Yeah, and here's where we get to some of my issues with this. And, this is the discussion we have behind the scenes a lot, is how much do we want to base our judgments based on just, I have no background on this game, here's a game, judge it. And how much do we want to base it on how many people were involved in the team, what kind of budget did they have, blah, blah, blah. What kind of excuses or reasons do we want to give? And it's tough with this one because, I guess we'll get back to the background a little bit, but it's basically two guys.
Yeah.
Did this whole thing. And this is a huge game for just two people to make.
Yeah.
So, I don't want to take any credit away from the amount of hard work these guys obviously put into this and a pretty long trip they've taken with this game. That being said, there are some serious issues, like graphically and even, I'll even accept graphically, fine. They were experimenting with this in very, very early days VR. Back in like Project Morpheus days, they were coming with ideas for this game. But even at that, like the character model, like the animations, it's almost like sprite-based animation, really. It's, there's no...
It's pretty basic, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, character state to character state. And that's even your main character moving around. What?
Nothing. The second you like did one of the motions, I just pictured our main character, his jump animation.
Yeah.
It's not an animation. He goes from like the run thing to his both arms being straight up in the air, and with the, unbelievably awesome sound effect of whee. Every single time you hit the jump button,
yep.
Whee!
And then
I'm sorry, when it's easy to like kind of dismiss and forget about as you play. Like you hear it 1,000 times, you forget about it. But when you start paying attention to it, it is like the funniest thing of all time because you're just jumping constantly and your character's just going whee.
No, I like the death noise.
Oh yeah. Oh, we should. Okay, we'll get back to the graphics. But since we're talking about voice acting, definitely one of the worst voice acting
guys
of all time. Really, it's just really bad.
And here's the thing: like, voice acting is hard. It is very hard to get voice acting into a game.
Vitruvius, you guys can hire me for your next game.
Well,
because I'm totally down to do some voice work for you, and I won't charge you very much.
Yeah. I'm sure I'll give it a shot. But the thing is, they're saying they're taking the inspirations from Zelda and Mario and the classic platformers, which we all know for all their dialogue. You know what? If just don't do the dialogue.
Yeah.
They've got the text going anyways. Anytime a character is speaking, there is text there.
In a lot of the segments where characters were talking seem pretty out of place.
Yeah.
When it comes to like in the minecart level, there's a point where like it's not even a boss. Dude shows up just to go on like a monologue.
Yeah.
That's it. He was like, I'm just going to stop you right here.
Right.
Deliver a speech and then let you go on your way.
Looks like you were actually having fun in this level, so we want to pump the brakes on that a little bit and set your expectations lower.
Exactly. So voice acting, horrible. And
Yeah.
and it's not like one of these translation issues. Very often, like you'll see like here in like a David Cage
Right.
game or something where there's a bunch of people who speak French and they're trying to make it sound like they have American accents.
Yeah.
Not what's going on here. These people all sound like they speak English. I don't know what the issue was.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to I don't want to rail on it too bad, but we do want to point out where the issues are, where the ball was dropped in.
I will say graphically, I'm totally giving this thing a pass graphically because I thought the worlds were charming. I thought in the desert level, it's awesome when you look down at the ground, you see like a little snake go
That
by.
was neat. That was cool.
There's these little visual touches that take this kind of like average looking game and they make it feel really cool. And also, I know a lot of people are nostalgic for like the 16-bit generation, like the Super Nintendo.
Well, guess what?
Like pixel art style. Like
Yeah.
people are nostalgic for that. I like that. Like, don't get me wrong. I enjoy that, and I think pixel art has its place, especially amongst indie developers.
Mm-hmm.
But I get nostalgic for a different generation. I get nostalgic for PlayStation 1, N64, Sega Saturn days, and that is what this game looks like. And so when I remember when Blake Stone from Vitruvius Entertainment, he actually, this is a little breaking the fourth wall here.
Yeah.
We were a tiny little YouTube channel. We're still a tiny little YouTube channel. And but we were super small then. We had like maybe 500 subscribers.
Right.
And we were just getting into PlayStation VR. And I got an email from him saying, "Hey, we're making a PlayStation VR game. Do you want to review it?" And I was like, I thought I was on top of a PlayStation VR.
Yeah.
And I knew all the games coming out. And he goes, "This game's coming out in a week. Here you go." And I was like, "Whoa, I've never even heard of this thing."
Yeah.
You know, he's like, "We're a tiny little independent team from Canada, and here you go." And I was like, "Holy crap, this is what it's like to get a game early." And I had no idea what the game was. I actually, from the screenshots, for some reason, I thought it was like a real-time strategy game. Had no idea what I was getting into.
I could see that.
Well, yeah, exactly. And then when I realized it was a third-person platformer, like one of my favorite genres of all time, I was super excited. I was like, "Holy crap, we get third-person platformers in PlayStation VR!" Right. But we don't get third-person platformers in PlayStation VR. This is something we get surprisingly few of. We're a year and a half in, and there's this and that one game in the Playroom VR,
Right.
Robots Rescue.
Yeah, which is actually a really good point. So, and we do have another third. Well, I don't know. Moss isn't quite a platformer. Not
in the same vein as this. That's more of a. I'll give it a platformer, but it's more of a puzzle game than anything else.
Yeah.
This is more of a traditional third-person platform mascot.
Right.
Platformer.
And then bring up Robot Rescue actually right there.
Perfect. That game is beautiful.
It is beautiful. It is smooth. The animation is great. It is fun to play.
You have no camera control.
You have no camera.
It's Crash Bandicoot all the way. You're stuck with the camera going one direction, and if you want to run back this direction, well then the camera just goes back up for you.
Which is problematic.
It's very problematic. And they only made one level.
Right.
Where here we have was it 12 levels?
Oh, at least. Yeah. It's
4 worlds, 3 levels in each one, I think.
Yeah. It's enormous.
It is enormous.
Yeah.
This game will take you roughly, like you probably blast through the entire game without finding all the collectibles in like 4 or 5 hours. Maybe.
Yeah,
But if you want to find everything, you're going to spend 8 or 9 hours doing that. Easily. I think.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things to find. Right?
There are. I mean, the whole organizing principle is you're finding pages of the Book of Mervils.
It's a collectathon.
Yeah, and you need to collect those to unlock the next level. And so you folks have played this kind of game before. But there's, I mean...
Talk to me.
Here's one of the other things. So there's little things. I was telling Brian, apart from the fact that it's an indie developer, there are little things that let you know how much care is put into a thing. Like my thing is go to a restaurant, feel under the table. Is there crap under there? That's a good indication of the level of care they put into what they're doing.
Don't go to my restaurant.
Yeah, okay.
I don't check for gum.
But it's just these little polish things. Again, I don't care how much money you have or whatnot. There's these little things like that don't cost any extra money that show us how. So, for instance, there aren't many children in this game.
Okay.
But there is at least one part where there's a character who introduces you to his children, and the children are literally just the adult models shrunk down by 20%. Not shorter. They're just shrunk down by 20%. And right there, it's like, does it cost anything extra to design like what a kid would look like?
I don't know. Yes.
Yeah, and there's other little just hints and things. So this does go to kind of like my Des nugget for this game.
Here we go.
One thing
I was waiting for this.
Yeah, one thing I discovered about this game that I guess Brian didn't even know. This isn't the first version of this game, not by a long shot. The original game was Mushroom Ball VR.
I will definitely try to find some footage that somebody will allow me to use back here.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything online where it's just from Virtruvia saying, "Here's our game."
On their Kickstarter page there is.
Perfect.
There's
then
exactly
it's playing behind us right now.
And what it was a combination, and this should look very familiar to those of you who have played Mervils. It's kind of like Mario, Zelda, and Super Monkey Ball. And not only that, it was actually designed to be used with the Virtuix Omni, which, if that doesn't ring a bell, is a sort of bowl-shaped treadmill thing that you could use at home.
I think I saw this on Shark Tank.
Yeah. So you basically you'd stand in this thing that would kind of keep your waist sort of planted here, and then you would shuffle your feet and control where.
This isn't the Omni treadmill, guys. This is not the cool thing they're debuting now. This is something like I think they were standing on rollers, kind of almost like.
No, it's just a smooth bowl, and then your feet just kind of shuffle around inside.
There you go.
Yeah, this is very early, and that's again, this may be some explanation. Like this was before PlayStation VR was a thing.
Yeah.
This was originally a Kickstarter, then it was a part of Steam Greenlight, and actually did get greenlighted for Steam. The Kickstarter unfortunately didn't make it, but up to January 2016, it was still called Mushroom Ball VR.
I love it. Mushroom Ball VR.
Yeah, and it was a kind of platformer-esque, but you were moving the ball around the level. And then on their Kickstarter, there's nothing from January to July 2016 where they say, hey, everybody, Mushroom Ball VR has become Mervils VR, an action RPG, and going to be released on Steam. Then eventually was released on October 2016 on Steam. So when PSVR was being launched, this was hitting Steam. So it kind of goes to explain some of the combat is a little weird in Mervils because it really feels like they just took the character model and kind of jammed a sword into their hand, and that's exactly what they did. The combat in Mushroom Ball was your typical jump and bounce on things,
which you can still do in Mervils quite a bit, but
yeah,
you do have the sword. Adding a little bit of
and it does explain they didn't really do much character animation because it was the ball that was moving around.
Yeah.
So they just kind of removed the ball and just kept that same kind of animation to the characters.
Right.
The strangely flat level design, because you said Green Hill Zone.
Yep.
It's not Green Hill Zone. It's a big green plateau with chunks of rock sticking out of it which again makes sense if your basic gameplay is a ball rolling around a surface.
Yeah.
So that may explain some of the issues we have with it.
And I think some of the strangest elements to this game, I don't even think is like the level design or the platforming or anything like that. I think the strangest parts of Mervils are the bosses.
Yeah.
The boss fights seem so out of place.
They just jack up the difficulty an insane amount.
Right, you're having this pleasant time running around and you're doing your thing and you're exploring and finding pages and talking to different characters and doing their little side quests, finding sticks, and
there's some decent puzzles in there as well.
Absolutely, but then suddenly you're fighting a boss and it's you're right, it's ridiculously hard for no apparent reason, and then there's these puzzles that they sort of just jam into some of the levels, which are so obtuse sometimes that I don't even know what I'm supposed to be doing here.
Yeah,
and I think they added them just to be here's some variety, because every so often you run into a harpoon thing or a cannon, and it's okay, here's a first person segment where you're going to be shooting this harpoon, and I think they just want to keep things fresh and keep it interesting, but instead they almost create a little roadblocks where you're running around and you're I'm having fun, and boom, stop. You're what the fuck am I supposed to do?
Well, now the cannon thing makes sense.
Yeah,
because if you're in this ball getting loaded into a cannon, totally makes sense now.
That totally does make sense.
Before it's why would I just walk into a cannon?
Yeah.
That doesn't. Yeah, but now, but I was going to say the boss, especially the Fireworld boss, it gave me one of those few games in the world has given me what I'm calling blue shell rage. And it's just like, I am playing according to the rules.
Yeah.
You know, there's a part where like basically this target shows up to show you where the boss's energy attack is going to hit.
I hate this level.
So you avoid that, right?
Yeah.
No, fuck you. You're just going to get hit anyways. Were you anywhere near that thing when it started? It doesn't matter where you jump, you're going to get hit by it.
Yeah.
So that was. I think that may be the time when I decided I'm not going to finish this game.
and totally fair. You gave this game. I asked you to give it a little bit of extra time. You gave it more time than it really needed to. Than you needed to give it. I'm sorry.
Right. And this is the most frustrating thing about this game. The level design is good.
Yeah.
There are really good bones on this.
Mm-hmm.
The level, it's creative. It's, we said kind of at the beginning that there's nothing really original to this, and that's true.
Yeah.
But it is put together in a really nice way. Walking around, and just the fact that like all the characters and all that you want to interact with are all laid out there for you. So you can kind of look and observe, and sort of, if you pay attention, you can kind of figure out what you need to do and actually get everything done in the right order. Oh, wow, I can't pull the word order.
It's really late.
Yeah. And so there's a lot to like, but everything on top of the bones is not well put together.
I do want to say, just to pull the curtain back a little bit, I reached out to Blake Stone.
Hey, Blake.
I was like, hey, dude, we haven't talked since you first sent me this review key. I wanted to check in, because we hear all the time, CCP just got out of the VR industry, which is a real shame.
But they're keeping up the service and everything, and updates for Spark.
Oh, no, it's those great. Aren't going away. Yeah, it's great. But we hear constantly, there's not enough money in VR for developers to keep making games.
Yeah.
This is proof that if you have a smart budget and you plan accordingly, and you don't charge too much for your game, and you do all the right things, and you got the small team that you're not paying hundreds of people millions of dollars to create a game, you can do well. And so when I talked to Blake yesterday, he said that Marvel sold really well, and they were all very happy with the results. Yeah. So much so that, in fact, that they're making another PlayStation VR game. Now, it's not Marvel's 2 to my dismay.
Yes, it's Ungodly Shadows.
Is that what it's called?
Yes, Ungodly Shadows.
Nice.
At least that's what's on their website currently. That's the names they're working under. It's going to be more of a...
See, here's the thing. They compared Marvel's proper here to Mario and Zelda a bit too much, right?
Right.
It's like don't run before you can walk.
Yeah.
But now they're comparing their new game to kind of like a linear, not so open world Skyrim.
Right, which is like a Skyrim that's not Skyrim.
So it's like Fated, the Silent Oath.
Oh God.
We're not making fun of anybody here because you'll learn in a second how much I love Marvels, and I'm very excited to see what Vitruvius Entertainment does next.
And here's the thing: they claim on their website it's going to have voice recognition, so you're actually speaking to NPCs, which is I don't think I've seen that implemented. Certainly not in anything in VR.
It sounds like it's gonna have move controls for some pretty epic weapon combat.
They claim they're claiming feedback with parrying, which is I think it was one of my litter boxes. Someone was asking me like, "Oh, are we going to see a fencing game?" And I said, well, the biggest thing that's going to stop actual sword combat is the fact that you don't get the feel of the other person's blade against yours. Right. And they're claiming that's going to be part of what they're doing here. And they're also saying they're using motion capture for their animation.
So they'll have animation this time.
Yeah, so it sounds like, not only did they do well, they did well enough to really put some money into this next project.
And so when we heard how that this sold well and that they're happy with the results and they're making another PlayStation VR game, it sort of goes back to what I've been saying to you guys for a long time now, is that a lot of people have been like, where are our AAA games? Where are our AAA developers? How come no one's making big games for PlayStation VR? And it's because there's not a lot of people to sell the game to. Right, and if you don't sell 100,000 copies of your game, then you're not going to make enough money back to recoup your losses that the game took to make.
Yeah.
So it's these smaller developers, it's these independent developers that are kind of like, while we're waiting for VR to catch on, it's these guys who are going to like basically be creating the game libraries. When Marvels came out, and I thought it was great, and and then it sold a bunch of copies. Now these guys have some more money to create a better game the next time around, and then if their next game sells really well, then they'll have even a bigger team and a better game to sell the next time around.
Right.
And then, fast forward 15 years, and then you've got maybe not a AAA developer, but a solid A developer.
Yeah.
Right? There's a new term floating around. I forget what it is. Whatever, it doesn't matter. The point is that these people are passionate about PlayStation VR.
Clearly.
And if you like their game, we're not telling you to throw money at people who aren't making stuff you like.
Yeah.
But if you like this style of game, support these developers.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll hear more success stories like this in the future.
Yeah. I guess that probably segues into our ratings, unless there's something else you want to...
Oh, no, we should definitely rate this then.
All right.
Yeah.
So just a refresh and a reminder, our rating scale is pretty simple. Number 1 is you need to buy this. This is one of the best the console has to offer. If you own a PSVR, this has to be in your library. 2, it's okay. If you really, really like the genre, or if it's on sale or something, sure, go ahead, pick it up. We're not going to poke fun at if you do. And 3 is, no, do not buy this. Friends don't let friends buy crap. Do not support these people. We need to stop this now. So what do you think? 1, 2, or 3?
So I've been struggling with this for days now.
Yeah.
Because if I was rating this game for me,
yeah,
if I said, I'm not here to tell people what they should spend their money on, I'm basically airing my thoughts about a game for me,
I think that's what the people want.
then it's a 1.
Okay.
It's for me, it's a 1. But make sure you're like me, right? Make sure that despite all of the faults we just listed, the fact that the graphics aren't so hot, the fact that we didn't talk about the controls, but I feel like it's, for the most part, it's a decent platformer, and sometimes you'll struggle with the controls. Especially
the jumping is a little weird.
Sometimes a little weird, right? But despite the fact that it has a lot of issues with voice acting and just some overall weirdness, right? And that it's definitely a low budget game. I had a whole lot of fun with Marvels, and maybe it has something to do with the fact that we still don't have another game like it. That this is the only third-person platformer on the system. We've got nothing to compare it to. If the Ratchet and Clank remake had come to PlayStation VR, we'd be like, well, who the hell cares about Marvels? Like, look at this thing we have to compare it to, but we have nothing to compare it to. And so for me, this is a shining example of something I had a whole lot of fun with for many, many hours, despite its issues. And so for that reason, it gets a 1. And there's so much of me that wants to say it's a strong 2, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you can find it on sale, you'll be really, really happy, and that's true. But if we're saying, Brian, Paul, what do you think of this game for yourself? It's a 1.
Yeah, and that's clear. I mean, you've gone on record many times about saying this is one of your favorite games in VR. So
I do love it.
Yeah. For me, see, this is what I've been wrestling with, because honestly, I've been talking some mad crap about this game.
I'm talking smack about Marvels for a year.
Yeah, and look. These two guys, there is no way on earth I could come close to making something even a quarter as good as this. The two guys who created this, Blake and...
I don't know the other guy's name.
I'm sorry.
Other guy.
It didn't make it to my notes. Sorry, other guy. Look, they clearly worked their asses off for this. I mean, this is a project that, if you follow the at least the posts on their Kickstarter, 2 or 3 years at the very least.
Yeah.
And they we didn't mention this. Their main business, it looks like, is making 360 videos for corporate things and whatnot. It seems like that's how they pay their bills. And Marvels was their passion project. They put a ton of work into this. This is not we've seen some really crappy VR games from people who couldn't possibly care less and just wanted to just throw something out there to cash in.
But the problem is that that's not how we rate games.
And that's where I come into a problem. If this was from some AAA developer, some single A developer, and it was charging $30, I would say this is a 3, fuck these guys. But it's not. And it's so I'm going to say it's a 2. I'm going to say it's a 2. I think they priced it really well for the amount of gameplay there is. I mean, this is like, I think this is just about perfect. $20 of, just $20 for 6 hours or more of gameplay. Maybe not the best, but you know what? $20, you're not going to go too wrong.
And it is frequently on sale.
It is, yeah. I think it just came off sale. It was like
$8, I think, with PlayStation Plus.
So
if you're hesitant even after my initial review and watching this, then by all means wait for a sale. But definitely pick it up once it's on sale.
Yeah, I don't want to say a 3 because 3 is something I reserve for
trash.
No,
3 is trash.
Yeah. And this is not trash. This is a game that it's like this scale. Like, are the bad things about the game worse than the joy I get out of it? Okay. For Brian, that's very clearly, yeah. For me, I don't have as much, nostalgia for that era of gaming because that's actually when I jumped ship and went to PCs.
Okay.
So I never even owned a PS1. And I'm not a big third-person platformer fan anyways. So for me, the scales are more in this way, but I'm going to say it too. These guys work their asses off to make something, and way better than I could do. So,
I'm gonna say I found a lot of joy, a lot of reward when I finally got when I was finally able to like upgrade my character's weapons, and because that
makes a significant. Actually, we should mention that. Yeah. Like a lot of times when you have like we've talked about it in other games we reviewed, where it's just like, oh, you unlock this stuff. Does it actually change anything? Well, no. But it makes a significant difference. Yeah. You definitely feel the power up when you upgrade your weapons and your shields and whatnot.
And there's a character creator.
Yeah. There's that.
It's not significant, but yeah, there's a great sense of progression. You do feel stronger every few levels when you're able to upgrade your character. It does feel pretty good. Yeah. And when I jumped back in and captured footage. I jumped into my almost 100% completed game.
Oh, geez.
And I was running around the world, like especially the first couple levels, just kicking butt. Like, no problem at all. Like one swing of the sword, everybody goes down. And it felt great. Right. It felt really good. It reminded me how much I really like this game. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
So as always, we're very curious to know what you thought about Mervils. Did you like it as much as I did, or even as much as Des does?
Yeah,
still feel weird saying that.
I can't say I liked it. I can respect these guys for the amount of work they put into it, but am I going to play this again ever? Probably not.
And I'm very curious to see what these guys do next. I want to see some gameplay footage of their new game. I think 2019 is when we're supposed to expect it.
You know what? Just advice. You're great level designers. Hire an art director. That's just. Yeah.
All right.
And you got something.
So the big question, of course, on everyone's mind is, what game do you want us to talk about next?
It's on my mind, actually.
Well, we know what game is coming next week. We don't know what game's coming the week after.
Oh, we do. That's right.
Yeah. So in the comments below, let us know what game you want us to talk about. Everything is pretty much on the table. I don't think there's anything off the table except for maybe like Valkyrie and Battlezone.
Battlezone's not going to happen, guys.
Yeah.
At least maybe you can have a special guest, but
not for a while. We need to get Des. This is we're getting over a very significant motion sickness hurdle at the moment.
Yeah.
And he's not quite there yet. So.
Yep.
So not yet.
I do pop, and for those of you who I do pop in every couple weeks. I just try out the demo, and I don't know what it is about that game, but man, I need to tap out like immediately.
Luckily, it's coming to non-VR.
Yay.
Sorry. All right, for another episode of Why We Love PlayStation VR, I'm Brian Paul.
I'm Des.
And we'll see you next week.